Strategy is what you're doing and, really about the practical action. Mindset is about what you're believing and the beliefs that sit behind those actions. And really often, in many, many ways, business comes down to this aspect. If you can get your mindset in the game, then, the action is so much easier. Strategies, there's many, many strategies that work. But mindset is often the glue that makes it all happen. And then energetics, that's about who you're being. So, how are you showing up? Who do you have to be to kind of step into that next level or to reach the goals that you want to reach? And is a really key part, quite linked with mindset, because I think when you've got a really solid mindset, then it's easier to show up in the way that you need to and have that energy and step into that energy. But they are two separate things. So it's like what you need to do, the beliefs you need to have, and, who you need to be in order to reach your goals. The first thing that I always do with my clients is look at, okay, well, what is your business model right now? What are the offers that you've got in your business? And are they geared towards creating consistent cash? Like, can you actually create consistent cash in your business with what you've currently got? And
Hello, my loves, and welcome to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah, and I am your host, and I am so excited to be here with you guys today, because today I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Bec Cuzzillo about the strategies, mindset, and energetics of creating consistent cash flow in your business. Now, this was amazing. Bec is a soulful business strategist, and she is phenomenal because she will talk to you about the strategies needed, the mindset needed, and also the energetics needed to get where you want to go in your business. So we just had the most amazing conversation where we literally combined all three of those things, strategy, mindset, and energetics, into showing and discussing how you guys can literally make consistent cash and what it's going to take to be able to do that. So this was a phenomenal conversation where we really got into the three different parts of creating consistent cash. So I really hope you guys enjoy this interview today. It was a phenomenal interview, and I literally loved having the opportunity to chat to Bec and to bring it to you. So grab a pen and paper, sit down, write some notes, and this one is not to be missed, guys. Hello and welcome back to Create Your Life. My name is Simone Leah and I am your host, and I'm super excited today to bring you guys Bec Cuzzillo from the Feminine Fire podcast. This is going to be a phenomenal conversation because we're going to be talking about strategy, mindset, and energetics of creating consistent cash in your business. So hi Bec, how are you?
hello, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on the show today.
I am literally so excited to have you here. I think this is going to be a phenomenal topic because we are talking about strategy, which is practical. We are talking about mindset, and we are talking about energetics. So I think this is going to be a phenomenal conversation that everyone's going to get value out of. But I want to jump in. I want to just jump in and start with, what does creating a life you love look like to you?
I love this question. And I think if you ask me on a different day, I might give you a different answer. But today, creating a life that I love is, for me, it's about having time and flexibility and freedom to be with my family and really live my purpose too. I think there's many multifaceted ways that I do this, and I think it's about like the personal why for me of having time. I'm a mum of two, so I have a 4-year-old now, he just turned 4, and an 11-month-old, so he's almost 1, which is wild at the time we're recording this. And they are my world because I am their world. So a big part of my why, my personal why, is having the time to be the mum that I want to be. But at the same time, I also love having my business for many reasons because, I get to create an impact and support incredible women doing incredible things in the world. But also it gives me purpose outside of being a mum too. And I get to have this thing that is just for me. And so that's what creating a life that I love looks like. It looks like having all of these different multifaceted parts of myself be kind of fed and nourished through, all different ways, but through intentionally creating my life in the way that I've created it.
Oh my goodness, I love that. And can I just say, I can't believe you have an 11-month-old. You look rested. Like you look like you get enough sleep. How do you even manage having two children under 5 and a business and life? Like I don't even know how you do that. Like you look like you've had a proper like 8 hours sleep every day for the last however many years.
I
You're so
appreciate that.
vibrant.
I definitely haven't. Last night was particularly bad. My eldest, he slept really, really well. My 11th month old doesn't love sleeping. So that's been interesting. But I appreciate you saying that. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. I never would have thought I could function on little sleep. I'm a person that's always loved my sleep. And, other mamas out there will know you just make it happen. It's amazing what you can do
Yeah.
and function on little sleep.
Yeah, because I just love how much energy you've got. Like you're so vibrant and alive and happy. And I'm like, I've had like probably not that much sleep. I'm like, but way more than you, obviously. But like, yes, thank you for being here. Like, really, really appreciate it. So,
I love it.
well, let's dive into this topic: strategy,
Yes.
mindset, and energetics. How do the three of those work in business?
I love this. And this is obviously my jam. So, this is my approach to everything in business, and that's to bring these three things together. So, strategy is what you're doing and, really about the practical action. Mindset is about what you're believing and the beliefs that sit behind those actions. And really often, in many, many ways, business comes down to this aspect. If you can get your mindset in the game, then, the action is so much easier. Strategies, there's many, many strategies that work. But mindset is often the glue that makes it all happen. And then energetics, that's about who you're being. So, how are you showing up? Who do you have to be to kind of step into that next level or to reach the goals that you want to reach? And is a really key part, quite linked with mindset, because I think when you've got a really solid mindset, then it's easier to show up in the way that you need to and have that energy and step into that energy. But they are two separate things. So it's like what you need to do, the beliefs you need to have, and who you need to be in order to reach your goals. And so I bring those three things together in business.
I love this. I totally love it. And I totally agree. Like there's the doing aspect, but there's also the mindset and the energetics. And I think that that's so important. And it's something that I've noticed a lot in all of my work as well is there's so many strategies out there. Like there's so many. You can literally create a business that you love tomorrow. The answers are there. Anywhere on the internet, you'll find the answers to do something that you love. Doesn't even matter what it is. There'll be a way to do it. But it's the mindset and it's the energetics that is what's to me I find holds a lot of people back. So I think this is such an
Mm,
amazing topic. And I think that we're diving obviously into consistent cash, which is another thing as well, because you get a lot of people and they might have a standalone product of, selling t-shirts or something, whatever. Or they might have like a one-on-one offer that they're selling people. But how do we actually go about creating consistent cash in our business? Speaking to entrepreneurs who are in the course creation and the mentoring, the one-on-one, the healers, the coaches, how do we go about creating consistent cash in our businesses?
mm. So I love this question because I've literally created a program around this exact topic for my clients because I saw there was a massive gap in both my business model, but also in the industry around, having support to actually get to that point. And there were so many people in my community who are in this space of, you know, essentially spinning their wheels and hustling quite hard for the next sale, but never feeling like they quite get to that point where they've got that solid, predictable income coming in each and every month. And you're feeling like they were on this roller coaster of income up and down, up and down. And so when we look at, okay, how do we actually do this? The first thing that I always do with my clients is look at, okay, well, what is your business model right now? What are the offers that you've got in your business? And are they geared towards creating consistent cash? Like, can you actually create consistent cash in your business with what you've currently got? And what are the gaps in your business model that we might need to fill? Or what are the changes or tweaks we need to make? Because that's the basis of creating consistent cash. If you don't have that solid business model that's actually going to support you to reach those goals, then you're not going to get there, essentially. And so often we skip that part. We go, I just want to create this really amazing offer. And we don't think, okay, well, what does this mean for my cash flow? Am I, even with my capacity that I've currently got, and the price point that this currently is, what does that equal? Like, what is my income ceiling here? And are there any tweaks and changes we need to make? So really essentially looking at the numbers, running the numbers, and getting clear on, the position that you're currently in business and what the gap is between where you are now and where you want to be, and therefore what you need to do in order to reach that specific goal, and making it really tailored and personalized. That's step number one for anyone wanting to create consistent cash in their business.
And what could that look like? Because we obviously hear a lot about high ticket offers and low ticket offers. In your, like, obviously, because we are opening this up in a little bit of a way, if you were working with someone, would you be kind of saying to them, look, you can have a low ticket offer and have 5,000 people in it. You can have a high ticket offer and have 100 people in it. It's really up to you. Or would you be directing them in a certain direction? Or would you be saying, have a low ticket reoccurring and a high ticket reoccurring? Like, what is the sort of thing that people should be doing? Or can they just do whatever they want?
So there's no right or wrong. The thing to think about here is looking at what you need in place in order to make those models successful. So high ticket is easier to reach consistent cash with a smaller audience. So if you're somebody who's just starting out, having a higher ticket offer that creates recurring income, that's going to be the fastest way for you to get to a place where you're creating consistent cash in your business. If you're somebody who's got an established audience, you've got a big community, then lower ticket is easier. Lower ticket means you need higher volume. So as you said, if you've got a lower ticket offer but 5,000 people in it, that's great. That's creating that income for you. And you can literally sit on that, and that can be your main kind of bread and butter, so to speak. But if you're somebody with a smaller community just starting out, then higher ticket is probably what I would recommend first and foremost as you're building your community. Even if the long-term vision is to be in a place where you do have a lower ticket offer and lots of people in it, you essentially need the volume in order to make that happen. And so we need to be essentially taking into consideration what your current audience size is in order to determine what your best next steps are.
Okay, well, that makes me go to the next question of, if you are just starting out, how do you even have the mindset to create a high ticket offer then? Because if you're just starting out, you're going, I should be starting with the low offer because that's where I'm at. You know what I mean? What would you say to those sort of people? Like, if you were talking to someone, a client came to you, I mean, they're like, I want to have a high ticket offer, but I've never, I mean, obviously you wouldn't have someone who's never coached before, but but I'm new to what I'm doing. How do you even get past that hurdle of I'm worth high ticket?
That is a really, really great question. And I think there's a few things that come into that. And, essentially we've got to believe it's possible for us in order for us to like get our energy behind it, right? So this is how mindset and energetics are interlinked. And so if someone was coming to me with that, we would do some mindset work, just up front, having a conversation around, okay, well, what if we did it? What would push the boundary a little bit, but maybe, isn't so wildly out of, your realm. So this is kind of getting into pricing energetics, I suppose. And that's something that I teach my clients, when we're pricing, we want to price it at a point that obviously makes sense for the value that you're providing. But being in this industry, if you're in the online business industry, you'll know that that looks very different. If you're a coach, you can be charging $50,000 for a program, and you could also be charging like $500 for a program. And so your version of high ticket is going to be different. The question I would ask the client sitting in front of me who's like, I've got lots of mindset wobbles around this, it's like, okay, what if we stretched, what's your price point now? What if we stretch that by 10%? How would that feel? Could you get behind that? Could you show up and say to somebody, this is my price? And not go, this is my price. That's essentially what we want to be doing. We don't want to kind of hide behind and kind of get to that point of maybe saying what the price is and then kind of getting all weird about it. We want to be able to stand and say, this is my price, this is what it is, and it's definitely worth this. It's probably worth more than this. And then what we do is we incrementally increase from there. And so I'm not about sitting there and saying, you have to price it at this price point because that's the thing that makes sense. It's like, this is the goal. And right now this feels comfortable and maybe a little bit stretchy, but you could still get behind it. Let's go with that. And then keep reviewing and checking in with those prices as you get more experience.
I love that. And I also love, thank you so much for even mentioning the fact that what is high ticket to one person is completely different to another.
Yes. Yeah.
So I even love that you mentioned that, because it takes that little bit of like, everyone's like, I've got to be high ticket, I've got to be high ticket. But like there's high ticket that is $50,000 for the same thing that you're going to sell for one or two, or 500 or, so high ticket is, it's really going to depend on the person and their situation and where they're at. And I love that you're saying you just get to that point where you're not hiding behind yourself and scared to tell people, you know what I mean? Like that point where you're like, because everybody, they go out, I mean, maybe not everybody, but for me personally, I might go out and buy a new pair of shoes, and next minute I'm like, oh my goodness, look at my shoes. Like, these are the most amazing shoes that I've ever bought in my entire life. And you want to be able to say that about your own products. You want to be like, this is the best thing I've ever made. Like, so stretching that, as you said, so that you're not hiding behind it and going, this is my product and it's 20K when you're not there yet. And being like, this is my product, it's 3K and I'm so excited, it's so worth 3K. If that's where you're at, where you're not hiding and you're able to go out and talk about it, is that the kind of energetics that we're talking about?
Yes, 100%. So essentially, like in terms of energy, if we aren't sold essentially on our offer and the price, we're going to show up with that energy and people are going to feel that. Whereas if we are confident in our pricing and confident in the offer, we can show up and say, this is amazing and you need to be in it. And when you're in that confident energy, people are attracted to that. So you want to be in a space with your offer, all of the inclusions, everything. And the same thing kind of goes, if you're creating an offer and the inclusions you put in there feel like you're going to have to give so much energy to this thing and you're not being compensated in the way that you want to be compensated for it, when you show up and share it, you're not going to show up and share that in a way that energetically attracts people in, because you're like, I don't really want to be doing this thing, you know? So you've got to love it. You've got to love your offer. You've got to show up with that energy, and pricing does come into that, because if you've priced it at a point that just feels so wildly either too much or too little, then you're not going to be able to show up and share that in a way that really attracts the people in that you want to attract.
Yeah. And I actually also, thank you so much, really love what you said about loving the offer itself in what you're doing in the offer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I
Yes.
know so many people who are like, I have my offer and you have 24 hours access to me over Voxer or whatever it is. And for me, I'm like, I'm horrified at the thought of 24-hour access, because I don't want to be on my phone the whole time. So for me, you know, my offer, if I was to try and sell an offer that had 24-hour Voxer access, I wouldn't be able to sell that, because personally that's not in alignment for me. So I even think it's really important what you're saying about making sure that what's even in your program is stuff that you want to do. You know, I love being there for my clients. I literally love it. If people message me and I see it, I will respond, you know, but that energy of being like 24 hours on Voxer, like that freaks me out. And that's an energetic thing that if you can just tweak your own wording or tweak your own offer, you can change the energetics around what you're offering so that you're still offering what you want to offer, but it is in alignment with you. And I think it's really important that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people are just like, I'm just going to do what that other amazing coach, just that other coach that I look up to, they've got this and this and this and this and this, so I'm just going to copy that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It's got to be, you know, it's got to make sense for you, and it's got to make sense for your clients. So something I talk to my clients about whenever we're in that offer creation space is like, okay, well, you know that this offer, you want to get your clients from point A to point B, and you want them to have this transformation. So what do we need to include for that to happen? What does this offer need to look like to facilitate that transformation for them? But also what's going to work for you, and knowing too that your offers will probably change over time. So for example, you know, we've already talked about the fact that I've got 2 young kids. You know, my business and my offers look very different now than what they did 5 years ago, because I don't have the same time. And, you know, I run a business model now where I have a mastermind and I have group programs, and that's the way that I coach my clients. And there is one-to-one access within those programs, but I maximize my time that way. You know, at a maximum, I have 2 or 3 calls a week, and that's it. And the rest of the time, it's, you know, it's not Voxer, I work in Slack, but, you know, it's messaging, and they know that I'm in Slack, you know, this many times a day, and that I'll respond when I can. And knowing what those boundaries are, knowing you've communicated that to your clients really well, knowing you've communicated that to them, you know, from the outset, from when they purchase, you know, all of that just makes everything so much easier. You know, like when you're really clear on what's in there, and what you're really clear on what your clients need and what you need, then it just works, and you're able to show up energetically, and you're able to have the mindset as well that really supports that.
Yeah, I really, really, really love that. I love it. And I think, as you said, having a family, it probably does make all of those boundaries so much clearer for you. And I think that when you don't have kids, you're not necessarily thinking about those boundaries as much. And then one day you wake up and you're like, why am I on Voxer all the time? Or, you know, like having those kids, it automatically puts
Exactly.
those boundaries in, and it makes you think about stuff that you may not have thought about if you didn't have those 2 little beautiful souls, like depending on you, you know? So I
Yeah.
really, really love that. And I think that that's very important, obviously, for people to be thinking about, is what are their business boundaries? Because if you can't get behind, as we've said, I now feel like we're talking about it again, but if you can't get behind your own product because of the
Yeah.
fact that there's a boundary that you're allowing people to cross, again, that's going to show up energetically.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Boundaries is a big part of energetics. So thinking through all of those different little things are just going to support you to really show up in that way that you need to show up, whether that's, you know, when you're selling, or whether that's, you know, within an offer itself, and, you know, the support you're providing your clients. it's going to change the game.
Definitely agree. And because we are talking about consistent cash flow, and you did just mention masterminds and courses, and only minimal one-on-ones. To create consistent cash flow, should we be having that one offer, or should we be having, say, a course that has no real connection to you other than an email and message support, and then also a mastermind where people can log in and have that face-to-face time in a group, and then also still maybe offer one or two one-on-ones a week on top of that? Or what are you sort of thinking for creating that consistent cash flow? How can we go about doing that?
So there's lots of ways you can create consistent cash flow, and you can create consistent cash flow through working one-to-one with your clients. You can build a multi-six-figure business just working one-to-one with clients, right? That's totally possible, and it depends on a few different things. It depends on what you want, right? So you might build your business initially one-to-one, and a lot of that is dependent on your time, and initially that might work really, really well for you. And then you might get to a point where you're like, you know what, I want to scale this. I want to take this to the next level. I want to see what's possible here. And so that might be when you add in, a group program. And depending on what your business is, will change what that looks like. So it might be that it's, more of a shorter group program that has a little bit of live access to you. It could be that you create an online course that's more evergreen. It could be that you do create a higher level mastermind, and maybe your goal is ultimately to phase out your one-to-ones and to replace that income with something like a high level mastermind. Or you might share a membership if you've got the audience to support a membership which is lower ticket, then perhaps that's your goal. So it really depends. I feel like it's always the answer I give. It depends on where you're at and what you're doing, and what level of business you're at and what your goals are. All of those sort of, when we're looking at, what is the next step for you. And I think what helps you to make that decision is looking at, okay, well, what's the goal here? Is the goal to, actually, I really love working one-to-one, and so I want to keep doing that, but can I scale that in some way? Or is it actually, I want to get some more time freedom here and create some group offers that are going to free up my time, but still create that, transformation that people want? Am I going to do a mix? And it depends, where you're at, and essentially what's going to give you take you to that next level. What you want to consider when you're thinking about consistent cash is how you create that. So if you have a launch model, which is what my business is, I run a live launch model, I run the risk of having very roller coaster income with a live launch model, because, I have these spikes during a launch where people might pay in full for a program that goes for 6 months. And that's fine, but I've got to take that into account. I also offer payment plans. And so when you have high ticket offers, more people are going to opt in for a payment plan because it obviously helps their cash flow on the other side. And so having those options actually works in your favor. And I do think there's an element in the online business space where, pay in full clients or pay in full sales have been put on this pedestal of this is the gold standard of, getting this sale. But actually payment plans are really great because it means that you do have that forecasted income coming in. And yes, there's an element of additional admin to that and follow up if you need to follow up and things like that. But when you've got payment plans, for me, I know when people sign up on a payment plan, well, I've got this income coming in over the next 6 months, and that's amazing. And so that's how I create consistent cash in my business. And if you're running a live launch model, it's just something to keep in mind. If you don't have ongoing, retainer clients or ongoing one-to-one clients, you're going to have to, be a bit savvy about how you think about creating that ongoing consistent cash in your business.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And that does lead beautifully into my question of how are we creating this consistent cash flow? So I was going to say to you, are you doing it paid, organic? that sort of thing. So I'd love to talk about
Ah,
that, but
yeah.
also just if you could explain to people what is a you said you do live launches and that sort of thing. What is that
Yes.
sort of strategy, just so that people understand that as well?
Yeah, cool. That's a great question. Thank you for clarifying that. So, I run a live launch model because my programs are closed. So, I have a 6-month mastermind and then I have a 4-month group coaching program. And both of those are open closed containers. So, we have a start date for that, which essentially means you have to enroll by that date for you to be included in that program. And if you miss that, then you're going to have to wait till the next round, essentially. So what that means is, I'll have a quote unquote open cart period where, I'll open the cart for that launch. So for that round, that enrollment period, that'll have a defined time. So you can enroll from X date to X date. And I can bring in a lot of cash during that time because that's when I'm making my sales. Um, and then there will be a period of time where I'm not actively selling. And so I'm not making as many sales. And that's the risk you run with consistent cash flow with a live launch model. Those periods of time where you're not actively selling anything, how are you making money? What does that look like? And that might be where you supplement your income with other smaller offers or other things like that. But ideally, what you want to do is get to a place where you've created some kind of consistent cash flow that you can kind of forecast out, knowing that, I've got these payment plans coming in. Or if you do work on a retainer basis, so for example, if you're a virtual assistant or a social media manager or a graphic designer or, somebody who works on a retainer basis, you might know that you've got X amount of cash coming in over the next 6 months. And then you stack on top of that with other offers. But that's the live launch model, is where you essentially have sales periods where you're launching a specific program, whereas other people in other models will be selling all the time. And I do technically sell all the time, but part of that is behind the scenes and is less my marketing isn't necessarily focused on that. I have strategies behind the scenes that help me sell in those periods.
Now, I'd love to hear, thank you for that. Love to hear if you're only opening your cart for, say, a month to sell your product and then the cart closes for 6 months, how are you selling in that month? Are you using Facebook ads? Are you just using organic marketing? Because if you were someone who was new and you're like, I've got a month to sell this to, and what if people don't buy it in that month? How are you actually driving the traffic to that launch?
That is a great question. So I use myself, and I teach my clients and support my clients to use a multitude of strategies. I've used paid strategies before. I don't always use them. So I kind of dip in and out of paid strategies. It is something that I'm looking at implementing again. And the last time I did it was early last year. So it's been about 12 months since I used paid ads. And paid ads are really great to use, in my opinion, before you actually open the cart. So the way that I teach launching is, a kind of a 3-stage or 3-part strategy. The first is pre-launch. So before you even open the cart, you want to be preparing yourself and your audience for the incoming open cart period. So you want people to not be surprised when you open the doors, right? You don't want to suddenly open the doors one day and be like, surprise, I've got this offer. You want to have, people primed and ready. So you want to be sharing content that leads into that. So people aren't, surprised when you go, hey, here's this thing. So pre-launch is really, really important. And for me, that will sometimes include paid ads. And so I might run paid ads to a free masterclass, for example. And so driving people to join my wait list, to join my email list, sorry, and to jump on, some kind of free masterclass or free challenge. I always usually run something free to open the cart and to celebrate that. So have some kind of launch event. And when I've done paid ads in the past, I've driven people there because you're more likely to get people to sign up to something free from an ad. If they're completely cold to you, you want to, essentially give them an easy yes, and something free is an easy yes. If you've got the time, that could even be ads to a lead magnet first. So some kind of freebie lead magnet, then ads into a masterclass after that. And you can kind of link all of have a launch theme and link these topics so that people are going, oh, okay, I'm going to, sign up for this freebie. And oh, look, she's got this masterclass now. And oh, look, now she's got this program. So that's like ideal. You don't always have time to do all of that. But organically, and this is probably where I focus most of my energy and where most of my clients focus their energies, is looking at organic marketing. So that will be, what content are you creating during the pre-launch and the open cart period? So what does that content look like? For me, a big part of that is my podcast. So I, really intentionally create content and have topics on my podcast that, speak to what I'm teaching and supporting my clients with in, whatever next launch I've got coming up. And then so that's kind of on the front end. I'll also be then sharing content to my email list, social media, all of that sort of thing. And then on the back end, I'm also doing personal outreach. And this has been a game-changing strategy for me, particularly because I sell high ticket mostly. So most of my offers are high ticket, and that requires a higher level of trust from people and a stronger relationship with people, because it's obviously a bigger buy-in for them and a bigger investment for them. And for me, I'm working with people for a long period of time. I'm working with them for 4 months or 6 months. And so I want to know that we're a really good fit. And so I want to have a good relationship with that person too. So I do a lot of personal outreach on the back end. So people who have attended my free masterclass, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, thanks for coming to my masterclass. I've got this thing, can we have a conversation about it? Or do you want to have a conversation about it? Or do you have any questions? Or, so we have that personal conversation behind the scenes. And I do that in Instagram DMs. Sometimes I do it via email, but DMs are, excellent for that kind of engagement. I also pre-sell my offers. So because I've been launching for a long time and most of my programs I've done, run many, many times, I will have clients that re-sign. So I'm having conversations now for clients, at the end of July when we're recording this, I'm having conversations now, or starting conversations now for, the next round of my program in October, and asking them, hey, I know we're still a little while away, but are you considering joining for that round? Do you know, yes or no? And pre-selling that behind the scenes so that before we even open the cart, we know, oh, we've already sold X number of spots. And so going into a launch and into an open cart period, having already sold is just, in terms of mindset, it really makes a big difference, because you already know, like, oh, this is already happening. I've already got people in.
Yeah. I love that. Totally love that. And I love that you're connecting with people in the DMs, like that's beautiful, because it is just connecting with your audience. Now, for someone else who may have heard that and was kind of thinking along the lines of, I don't have time to be in my DMs. How much time are you spending on nurturing those sort of relationships every day or every week? Is it the sort of thing where you're like, I'm just going to slide into my DMs for half an hour and connect with people every day? Is it that sort of thing? Or are you just there when you need to be? Or do you have like a set, all right, I'm going to be DMing for an hour a day, every day, 6 days a week? Or, what does that sort of thing look like to someone who might be a little apprehensive about that strategy?
Yeah. There is always a lot of apprehension around this strategy, because it feels sometimes like you're cold DMing people. And I don't recommend that. Or I don't use that as a strategy myself. The strategy that I employ is people engage with me in some way and I reach out to them to say, hey, thanks. And that's what I would recommend as the easiest in here, So what I would recommend anybody who's like going, okay, but who do I DM? For example, like how do I start this? I would recommend reaching out to people when they follow you and just saying, hey, so great to have you here. And essentially welcome them in. I actually had a conversation with a client today about this where she was like, I feel a bit weird about that. And I'm like, well, think about it like this. If your Instagram account, you know, we're looking at social media, right? If your Instagram account is a party that you are hosting and somebody walks in the door, you're not going to ignore that person. You know, that person has walked in your door and, you know, said, hey, I'm here at your party. And you're just like, I don't want to reach out to them. I don't want to go and walk over there and welcome them. It's like, it's just literally you walking over to them and saying, hey, I'm so glad you're here at my party, you know? And so if we think about it like that, and we think about like, what is the thing we're going to potentially ask them, or even if it's just like, hey, so excited you're here, looking forward to getting to know you. And that's it. Like, that's perfect, right? Because you're already just saying, hey, I'm here. So that's one thing. Another thing I do, and I encourage my clients to do, is regularly encourage engagement on their Instagram stories. So using the poll feature, using the question box feature, and getting people to engage with you, who you can then say, hey, thanks so much for voting on my poll. I wanted to, you know, reach out and say, you know, first of all, thank you, but can I ask you another question about that? Or, you know, I'd love to kind of engage with you on this thing. And so doing those sorts of things to reach out to people. In terms of how much time, it really depends on how much time you've got, and, you know, knowing, and it depends too on what you're selling. If you're selling something low ticket and you're in a launch for a low ticket offer, this is going to be less worth your while, if that makes sense, because it is it requires significant amounts of energy from you to, you know, reach out to people, or it requires more energy from you because it's on a one-to-one basis. Whereas if you're, you know, selling something high ticket, it's going to be worth your while. You know, for me, if somebody invests in my mastermind, that's a, you know, $7,500 investment. For me, spending some time building a relationship, that's worth it, right? If I make a sale in that, or if I make one sale out of every 10 DMs I send, you know, like, that's worth the energy that I'm putting into it. And, you know, we are, you know, in the business, if you're in a service-based business, relationships are everything, you know, like, relationships are so important. And so what I would recommend is even just coming up with your own little script, something that makes it really, really easy for you to do this, and then tailoring that to people. And even if it's just, I'm going to welcome any new followers that come into my world with this, you know, little templated script that I've got, then do that. And that's how you might start. And not everybody will respond to you. You know, clients will then go, oh, but like, they didn't respond. And I'm like, that's okay. They don't always respond, and that's fine. And something I had an experience recently where I had reached out to somebody who followed me and, you know, said a little welcome note to them in DMs. And 4 months later, they then reached out about one of my programs. Yes. They didn't respond to my initial welcome text or welcome DM, but they were interested in my program, and then they purchased, you know. And while they might have still purchased even if I hadn't reached out to them initially, the worry people have is that scares people off, essentially. And it's like, oh, that's too intense. You're too intense. You know, you want to sell to me straight away type energy. But if you're literally just being like, hey, so great to have you here. Can I ask you a question? What I'll often do is I'll say, you know, hey, so great to have you here. Looking forward to getting to know you. You know, let me know if you've got any current challenges in your business, and I can maybe send through one of my podcast episodes that might be relevant for you, you know, so they know why I'm asking that question. And if they then respond, I send them some podcast episodes that, you know, I think might be supportive for them on that topic. So what is the thing that you're going to send? And think through, you know, how much is it a sale worth to me? You know, how much are those relationships worth to me? And so often, particularly people starting out in business, we do the things, in fact, everybody does this. We do the things that are easy to do and we put off the things that we feel are hard. And sometimes those things that are hard are the things that are going to make us money, and we need to know what those priorities are and start prioritizing the right tasks in business. Like, do you really need to be tweaking that Canva image 17 times? Or do you need to be in your DMs sending a note to someone? Like, what is actually going to be more worth your while here?
Yes, I definitely love that. And I'm so, so, so glad you brought that up. And I also just want to side note this just for a second to the energetics, because I do feel like a lot of the time we are sitting there kind of going, it's scary to be in the DMs, it's scary to be in the DMs, and looking at how you respond to people DMing you. Because I know for me, you're like, people are selling to me, people are selling to me, that's what's coming into my DMs. But I remember one time, I must have been when I first started following Regan Hillier or Hillier, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she just had an automatic script that came out, like you said, that was like, hey, blah, 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 blah. Thanks for being here, blah, 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 blah. Here's a link to a free product you can check out. And I didn't think she's trying to sell me. I thought, wow, she's really got her stuff sorted. Like, this is a professional message. She's just said to me that I'm available if you need to reach out. Obviously, I know she's got a team. But I didn't look at that message as her trying to sell me, because of I think the energy behind that for her is just like, look, I'm here if you need me. Here's some free stuff. Reach out if you need to, thanks for being here. And I think that the energetic behind the way you craft that message as well is going to make or break how you feel about what you're putting out there as well. Because at no point did I think, oh, Regan Hillier's trying to sell to me and like freak out about it. I literally was like, whoa, she's totally got her stuff sorted. And she's like legit, like, woman makes millions and millions of dollars a year. And she just personally messaged me, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of the time people will look at the DMs in the messages and be like, oh, they're trying to sell me. And if you can change even the way you're receiving messages from others, I also think that that also plays a role as well. Like, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I just, when we were talking about it, that's one thing that really stood out to me, because I was surprised within myself at how well I received her message.
I think it's a really great reframe, because very rarely, unless we're receiving a random cold DM from some dude that's like, yo, Bec, which you do get in the DMs, like, you're not doing that, right? If you think about the people that you follow, I literally had this conversation with a client today. If you think about the people that you follow on Instagram who you admire or who you really like, imagining them sending you a note saying, hey, it's so great you're here in my community. Like, most people would be super chuffed with that, And so if you're thinking about it in the reverse and you're showing up, and this is all mindset, right? Because this is about believing in ourselves and who we are. Because if we know that we're out there being that person for somebody else, you're out there inspiring other people, right? You're a business on Instagram. People are out there going, oh, look at what this business is doing, or look at what this person is doing. They're amazing. You reaching out to them, you're being that person for someone else. And I think we forget that, because we just go, well, I'm a human, right? We don't think of ourselves in that way necessarily. And so I think that's a really great reframe to think about how we engage and how we would feel if somebody we admire, or somebody we, look up to, or even just somebody we connect with, on an energetic level, looks at that and how you would respond to that. I think that's really powerful. And I think the other thing to remember too, when it comes to this, is a big part of business at the moment, with how much noise there is in the online space, is differentiation and how you can set yourself apart from others. And the fact is people aren't doing this, like, people aren't on a big scale, people aren't doing personal outreach. And so if, you're one of 10 business coaches or 10 social media managers or 10, healers that somebody's following, you might be the one healer that reaches back out to them, and they're going to go, oh, I remember her, or I remember that person. And so, thinking through what kind of experience, if we go kind of all the way back to branding, for example, like what kind of brand experience do you want people to have when they come into your world and engage with you? What do you want that experience to be like? I know I want that to be super welcoming to people. I want them to feel like they're part of a community. I want them to feel like they do have a connection to me and my work and what I'm here to support them to do. And so if you think of it in that way, we're crafting an experience for people. And so when they engage with you, how do you want them to feel and how can you make them feel that way?
I literally love that because you're taking it right back to the customer experience as well with you, which I think a lot of people don't think about. They think about, how am I going to show up? What is it I'm trying to sell? But you're actually taking that back and going, well, actually, what's your brand about? Like, what do you want people to feel? And I think that's a thing that so many people miss, like I know for me, I love changing the vibration of the room I'm in, whether that's me just smiling at someone or whether that's a conversation or whether that's actually helping them. And if you can bring that essence of whatever it is you're trying to do into your first initial contact and community, I just think that's beautiful. And I think that a lot of people are forgetting that part. So I really appreciate you saying that, because I think that's that's like a piece of gold right there. Just to be like, if you walk into a room in the real world, how would you be? Now apply that in your actual business. What experience do you want people to have with you? Like, I honestly, guys, that's a gold tip there that people probably don't always think about,
Yeah.
Which actually probably leads really well into the question of, what are 3 top tips you would give people if they do want to start creating consistent cash flow?
Awesome. So let's keep this quick. What are my 3 top tips? So firstly, it's going back to what I shared earlier around like knowing where you're at right now and, looking at your business model, looking at your numbers, getting a really clear picture of where you are right now, where you want to be. So, okay, you want to create consistent cash. What's the actual number you want to create? Like, what is your income goal every month? What would you love to be earning? And obviously once we hit that, we set another goal, right? But what is that for you right now? And so what's that number? And then what's the gap? So we just need to get a really clear picture of your business now, where you want to be and what the gap is. And that will support you to, make that decision around, okay, do I need a new offer? What does the new offer need to look like? All of those sorts of things. So that's kind of step number 1 and my top tip, I suppose, because that's going to inform your strategy. The second tip I would have is just be really mindful of your mindset, be really intentional around the mindset work that you do, because that's going to be the thing that supports you to show up in the way you need to show up and to stick to strategies. So I'm going to kind of combine this tip, I suppose. But I think one of the things that trip people up so often when it comes to strategy is chopping and changing all the time and not giving a strategy the time that it needs and the dedication that it needs and the all-inness that it needs to actually work. All strategies pretty much work. There are going to be strategies that feel more aligned or don't feel more aligned for both you and your audience. So deciding on what the strategy is the first thing, but then actually committing to it for a period of time and not getting distracted by all of the shiny things we see on the internet and all of the possibilities that we see on the internet. And that's where mindset's really key. So this is why it's all wrapped into one. If you are on top of your mindset, then it's less likely you're going to be distracted by what that person over there is doing because you're not playing the comparison game. So if you can be solid in your mindset, showing up for yourself, then you're not going to, you're going to be less distracted. You're going to be more focused. And that's what we need to make these strategies work. So that's my second tip. And my third tip would be what's my third tip going to be? I think my third tip is going to be to surround yourself with people who support you and who show you that this is a possibility. Something that I think happens if you're somebody who doesn't know anyone else in business, particularly if you're starting out and you don't have any evidence around you that this kind of thing is possible for the work that you do. It's really, really important to go out there and kind of seek those expanders, get in the room with people who are doing it, and get the support of potentially a business coach, or, be in a mastermind, or, go out and, invest in, the support you need, or connect in with a network that is going to give you that evidence and the support you need in order to reach those goals. Because it can be a real challenge. I remember when I started out in business, I had a goal of making $60,000 a year in my business. And I remember my dad saying to me, is that even possible in the business that you run? And he wasn't saying that from a place of, like, it's not possible for you, but he was like genuinely surprised that I would be able to make 60K, which is not 100K, not six figures. Like, it's not even that big a goal really when we look in the online business space. But it felt really big to me when I was first starting out. Is that even possible for you? And it's like, oh, I don't know. I've never done this before. And of course it is, right? Of course it's possible. There are plenty of people out there making millions. And so it's about finding those expanders and creating that evidence for yourself and setting yourself up in the best way possible for success, and not waiting on that, not kind of trying to do it all on your own and being, this lone little fish, finding those people that you can surround yourself with, finding those examples and finding that support.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's so important, because I feel like you can just get stuck in shiny syndrome. So like actually finding something that works and that it works, and giving it the time, while you're also surrounding yourself with that people and that evidence that it will work. The people who are doing what you want to do and creating the life that you want to create, and just trusting that what you've created, it will work. And as you said, being around those people that are giving you that evidence, that give it enough time and you can do it. I think all three of those tips, which I've kind of just meshed into one there, but I just think that they're amazing.
It's a great summary.
Yeah, I mean, summary wise was probably but I think that it's so important. Like, I really think what you're saying about just keep that one thing and run that, give that time to work, refine that, get that moving, get that one thing going before you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to create something that's complete opposite now, and because that one didn't work. Well, I mean, give it the time to work,
Yeah.
And
we can't just share once and expect everybody to flood the doors,
Exactly. You've just got to keep showing up, doing what you're doing, and having full trust in that, trusting that what you're doing is going to work. And if you don't necessarily have that trust, keep going out and finding it. Keep finding the expanders, as you said, keep finding the evidence, because it's there. There are millions of people doing what we want to do and making phenomenal amounts of money and living amazing lives. So, why can't we, I guess, to me, that's the main thing. It's like, why can't you do that?
Yeah.
Of course you can do
that. 100%. Of course you can. It is that, and it is why mindset is so key, because, if you don't believe it's possible, then that's going to be what you create, right? You're going to create the impossibility of that. Whereas if you believe that it is possible and you believe that it is yours to have, then you're just going to make that happen. And it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be hiccups along the way. And it doesn't mean that a strategy might not work for you, right? But, there will always be learnings, and so it's yes, we might tweak things, we might change things, we might pivot our strategy in different ways, but if you're chopping and changing all the time and not giving things the time to kind of manifest and create the results, then of course it's not going to work.
Definitely 100% agree. And definitely I love that you said, it's less about chopping and changing all the time. Like you can still pivot the offer and change, or not pivot the offer, but you can still tweak the offer and make little changes as you go along to make it more effective. But yeah, it's the chopping and changing that's not going to be in alignment. Give it time to manifest, as you said. So I love that. And are there any references or books or courses or anything of your own that you would like to refer people to so they can learn more about this?
So I think the best place to kind of learn a little bit more for free about this is the podcast. So I have my podcast, Feminine Fire with Bec Cuzzillo, which we're going to have an interview with you too, Simone, which will be great. So I would recommend people jumping over there first and foremost, because I've got a program that specifically speaks to creating consistent cash in your business, which is called Confident Consistent Cash. I have content on the podcast that speaks directly to this topic. And then, of course, if that's of interest to you and you're at that point, where you do really want to go all in on creating consistent cash and getting support in your business to do that, then I do have that program as well, which I run twice a year. And if you're interested in that, then I would, recommend reaching out to me on Instagram at bec.cuzzillo, and we can have a chat about that. But those are the places to kind of find me, the podcast and Instagram.
Amazing. And I have literally loved this chat with you. It's been phenomenal. I will share obviously all of your details so that people can find you on social media and obviously on the podcast. And I will share that on the YouTube and on my podcast so that you guys can actually find Bec and connect with Bec and listen to her podcast, which is amazing. Obviously, that's why she's here, because she's phenomenal at what she does. So thank you so much for being here today, Bec. We have all enjoyed this so much, and I really hope it's given everyone a little bit of an idea of the strategy business and energetics around creating consistent cash flow, because it is achievable to everybody. It's totally achievable to you if you're listening to this. It's something that you can easily do. And by thinking about those three parts, it can really help you to really align yourself with that goal that you have for yourself so much easier than if you're just focusing on strategy or just energetics. Aligning the three together, which is such a beautiful thing to do, that's where the real magic is going to happen. So thank you so much for being here today, Bec. It's been phenomenal.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great chat.
Yay.